morning.
Good morning.
Will you tell us your full name, spell your last name, please?
Bruce Eric Ferris, last name Ferris.
Mr. Ferris, what type of work do you do?
I'm a licensed mental health counselor.
How long have you held that position?
I've been doing that for 14 years. I've counseled individuals I just recently counted 1,000 clients, not including group work I've done. I also am a consultant in domestic violence and testify as an expert court witness in domestic violence.
Let's talk about your education for a minute.
Okay.
Please enlighten us.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering. I graduated from the Police Academy in Gainesville, Florida, and I have a master's degree in mental health counseling.
And do you have any specialized education or training in a specific field?
Yes. Been to a lot of training seminars and certifications and various conferences. In my curriculum vitae, I'll call it a CV, my resume. There's about 100 items listed of trainings that I've been to over the years.
For what specific field?
In domestic violence and mental health and trauma to children and trauma in general. And I could go on, but that's the general focus of all my work.
Let's talk about your work experience for a moment.
Oh, okay.
Tell us about it, please.
So as a counselor now, my day is spent seeing individual clients. I specialize, like I mentioned, in domestic violence victimization, both men and women. I also see generalized mental health issues and typical things that a counselor would do, but I have a focus on domestic violence and family problems. I also counsel adolescent boys, most of which are going through the foster care system or adoption or divorce of their parents, etc.
All right, and what position did you hold prior to that?
I was a police officer in Gainesville, Florida. For 20 years. I graduated the Police Academy in 1993, got sworn in 94, and I retired in 2013. The last 10 years of that career, I was a detective, uniquely running. I was the lead detective of what's called the Domestic Violence Unit of the Investigations Bureau at the Gainesville Police Department. Over the course of that time when I retired, I looked back and did a little search, and I had arrested or filed charges or got warrants on 500 different abusers over those years.
Mr. Ferris, give us an idea of your professional credentials, lightly.
Sure. I'm licensed with the state of Florida, like I mentioned, as an LMHC or licensed mental health counselor. I have to keep up with education, et cetera, keep my license active. I'm certified as a Batters Intervention Program facilitator. In case anyone doesn't know it, Batters Intervention, which I'll refer to as BIP, is a 6-month class given to abusers who are found guilty or on probation or could be part of their injunction order. And it's a curriculum based upon the Duluth Power and Control Wheel. And it's a psychosexual type, not sexual. It's a type of therapy that involves some counseling and some ownership and learning. And also was a certified police officer, I mentioned. I also have certification as a domestic violence danger assessment and level of danger scoring system developed by Jackie Campbell out of Johns Hopkins University. And I also have a certification as adoption competency training mental health for mental health professionals out of Rutgers University. I'll stop there.
And briefly, have you been the recipient of various awards and recognition?
Yeah, I have.
Give us a brief idea.
Okay. The Alachua County Board of Commissioners had nominated me to Governor DeSantis to be part of the Children's Trust Fund of Alachua County. I received the 31st Annual Martha Varnes Award for Outstanding achievement and prevention of domestic violence against women. I had recognition for valuable contributions in what's called crisis intervention team. I train officers how to de-escalate confrontations with citizens. I did receive the 2010 Distinguished Victim Service Award for recognition of outstanding contributions to crime victims for National Crime Victims Week by State Attorney General Pam Bondi awarded that to me, and Governor Scott at the time was there for the presentation.
Mr. Ferris,
I'll stop there. There's a few more.
have you been recognized as an expert on domestic violence in various courts of the state of Florida before?
I have.
Approximately how many?
So I've been involved in 60-some cases as either consultant or expert witness. 50 of those I've been recognized by the judiciary as an expert in domestic violence, mental health, batter's intervention, effects of DV on children.
All right, and when you say you've appeared before approximately 60 times as an expert witness, was it for any particular side in a dispute? That is to say, for example, in a criminal case, was it always for the prosecution, always for the defense?
But both. I worked for the state attorney's office and worked for defense, and a majority of my cases have been in civil court, though I have worked in criminal court also.
Would you, Mr. Ferris, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what another definition of domestic violence is?
Well, so there's the criminal statutes of domestic violence, which are typically, we all know, it's battery, assault, ag assault, false imprisonment, sexual abuse, etc., person crimes involving a family or household member against each other. And that has another definition. That's spouses or family members living together, or it could be a couple that had a child together and have never lived together. Doesn't include, let's say, cousins who've never lived together and aren't intimate in any way. But through my experience, I've realized that there's a greater, that's umbrella, and that has to do with power and control. The abuser needs to control their victim. Now, they'll use the criminal things, hitting, etc., all those things, but in a greater sense, there's also this, I referenced it earlier, the Duluth Power and Control Wheel that DCF's accepted for the BIP class. I'd like to explain the Power and Control Wheel, if that's
Yes.
okay.
In fact, with the court's permission, we could perhaps have the screen come down and the lights dim. Mr. Ferris, you have a laser pointer in front of you. The little star in red will provide you with
Okay.
the dot.
Judge, may I stand here and pay attention to the mic as I talk?
Any objection?
Okay. So as I mentioned, there's the criminal definition.
Is there a question? Objection. Was there a question?
Go ahead with the question.
Yes. What is it that's on the
Right.
screen?
So what
Mr. Ferris?
Okay,
Mr.
so-
Ferris,
Yes, sir.
would you please tell us what is on the screen?
I will. So this is what's referred to as the Duluth Power and Control Wheel. And so there's physical violence and sexual violence. Those are the criminal things I talked about. And then there's these power and control aspects. And the nature of the power and control is repetitive. It's a way to get control. So up at, we'll call it 1 o'clock, using intimidation, making her afraid by using looks, actions, gestures, smashing things, destroying her property, abusing pets, and displaying weapons would be an aspect of intimidating your partner, again, to gain control. Using emotional abuse, putting her down, making her feel bad about herself, calling her names, making her think she's crazy, playing mind games, humiliating her, making her feel guilty. Then isolation, controlling what she does, who she sees and talks to, what she reads, where she goes, limiting her outside involvement, using jealousy to justify actions. Then a big one that I see often is minimizing, denying, and blaming, making light of the abuse, not taking her concern seriously, saying abuse didn't happen, shifting responsibility for the behavior, saying she caused it. Another one is using children, making her feel guilty about the children, using the children to relay messages, using visitation to harass her, threatening to take the children away, male privilege, testing, treating her like a servant, making all the big decisions, acting like the master of the castle, being the one to define men's and women's roles, using economic abuse, preventing her from getting or keeping a job, making her ask for money, giving her an allowance, making her ask for money, not letting her know or have access to family income. And the last one is coercion and threats, making her carrying out threats to do something to hurt her, threatening to leave her, saying that he'll commit suicide, reporting her to the government, making her drop charges, making her do illegal things.
I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you about that wheel that you
Sure.
demonstrated for us. Is this something that you created?
No, this was created by, up in Duluth, Minnesota, there was a domestic violence advocacy group and also researchers, and they looked through police reports, they interviewed victims of domestic violence who come through the shelter, and through a period of time, they developed these 8 items and created the power and control wheel. This wheel is used around the country and actually internationally. Like I said, it's the base curriculum for the Batteries and Prevention Program class I talked about, and it's taught quite readily all across America and by use by domestic violence shelters, etc.
How long has this wheel, if you will, been in existence?
Yeah, probably, I'm guessing 30 years or so, could be a little more.
Are there any agencies within the state of Florida that predicate their decisions
Yeah.
upon the Duluth Power Wheel?
Yeah, the DCF accepted the power and control wheel for the curriculum for the BIP class.
That's the Florida Department of Children's and Family.
Families, they were the ones who were controlling the BIP class when it started up. Also, a lot of federal money, domestic violence, against women act, things like that have always promoted the power and control bill, and also, giving out grants and education money.
Are the majority of abusers male or female?
Majority are male, but there's certainly a percentage that are female. I'd say it's at least 2/3 male at the least. And in my practice, I have male victims.
And what about on the other end, the victims of domestic violence? What's the percentage of males and female?
So again, there's some different statistics. Somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 are men, and
Are men as victims of domestic violence?
2/3 to 3/4 abusers. So that on the other side of that, they're 1/3 to 25% male victims. And I just got a male victim this past week.
Okay, so
Okay, I'm done.
I want to make sure we're clear on this.
Sure.
You've told us that the percentage of abusers that are male is approximately 2/3, is that
At least
correct?
2/3. There's some statistics to make it actually higher.
Would you tell us, please, what percentage of domestic violence victims are female?
Somewhere between 2/3 to 3/4.
All right. Now, I want to ask you if you would educate us, Mr. Ferris, about whether or not there are common characteristics that abusers share.
And I certainly can do that, Mr. Teller. Can I make one closing statement about the Duluth wheel? And
Sure.
Power and control. So I think it needs to be said, maybe I didn't say it, that the whole idea of the use of the wheel is to get compliance by the abuser with their victim. So they're looking to control them, and either they use those criminal, the battery, or they use emotional abuse, or intimidation, or use different techniques to try to control them. So the victim of domestic violence is placed with wanting to have the least harm to them. So they get into a compliance, I call it an equilibrium type of status mode, where they seek to get along, to go along. They don't want to poke the bear. They don't want, they believe that this is certainly a danger to be involved with this person, their mate, their spouse, etc. So they comply. And they get this compliance mode, and they can certainly appear to society as nothing's going on, but there actually is, and they're afraid to display that because of the retribution that might happen.
All right,
I'll go on from there.
This wheel then is the product, if you will, of the science of domestic violence over the past 30
Right.
years.
And throughout my entire practice, the thousands of people that I've counseled and even the 500s I've arrested, I see this repetitively to be true.
All right. Now, would you please tell us,
Oh, I do. Thank you.
I need you to make sure you keep your voice up so the
Yes,
viewers
sir.
can hear you. Would you now tell us, Mr. Ferris, whether or not there are common characteristics that abusers share?
They can be anyone from all socio-economic stratas, and that's been my experience also. And I said, like I said earlier, predominance men, but also females.
What's the motivation for their behavior, abusers?
They want to control their partners. I find often an ownership type attitude. They want to control them.
How do they treat generally pets in the household?
Pets. So statistics have shown that abusers abuse pets well above average, more than average citizens would. And so I have two theories about that. One is that they're missing some empathy, or they tend to see things as objects. And so,
Object to
Sustained.
non-responsive.
okay. Can I explain why they abuse pets?
Yes.
So if a pet belong to the female or their partner, the victim,
I'm going to object.
Can you approach, please?